Hi, I'm Erin. Thank you so much for joining me for the Intro to Yoga series. Today we are going to be covering arm balancing. We're going to be covering crow, side crow, and cloud. And crow might be a posture that you might more often see presented in a yoga class. So it's nice to have a general understanding of it so you can practice it and work toward holding the posture without props or anything. So I'm joined today by a whole family of howler monkeys in the tree above me. So you might hear them. They might be dropping things on my head, hopefully just leaves. So let's start out with crow. It's Bakasana. I'm going to show you crow and crane, and I'm going to show you how to get into the posture with a prop. So if you have a block or two, or maybe some books at home, have them handy. So I'm going to show you crow from the side and crow from the front as well. In crow, we want a really solid foundation in our arms. It is an arm or a hand balance, and the easiest way to put it is basically you want Chaturanga arms for your crow. So if you have already covered the Chaturanga tutorial, you'll know what I'm talking about, but basically your Chaturanga arms are going to look like this from this side. So you're going to have a nice 90-degree position from your elbow to your wrist. So just go ahead and test this out, find your Chaturanga arms, and we're going to basically be in this position on our hands. When we come into this position, just imagine your knees resting on the back of your arms and see how this is kind of a really nice, like, just resting place. So go ahead and find your blocks or your books and take them to your mat. I think this is a great way to learn crow because you're going to get your hips lifted with the assistance of the blocks. So go ahead and come onto your blocks, position your feet side by side on your blocks. You can have it to whatever height that you want. So I'm going to show you with a really nice height, so I'm pretty far up already. You're going to take your hands onto the floor. You're going to position your shoulders right over your wrists. And crow takes a little bit of courage because you're going to have to hinge forward and look forward and bring all of your weight onto your arms. So the first thing we want to do is separate our knees. So since I'm already propped up here, look, my knees are already on the backs of my arms, my shelf that I'm going to come into when I find my Chaturanga arms. So you're going to shift forward. And right here is a great place to stay and just work on your core strength and your courage. So you're looking past your hands, your hips are lifted, but you have the support of the blocks and you're pretty high up. So eventually maybe you lift one or both toes off the blocks. Okay, I've got my Chaturanga arms, I've got my shelf, my knees are resting on the backs of my arms, or squeezing my toes and my heels together. And then I've got, woo! So that's the risk. You can fall forward, and that's all right, okay? It takes courage. You just kind of fall onto your forehead. Maybe you want to have a padding in front of you as you're learning and building your courage, okay? Just a little blanket or something to fall onto. What I was going to say, though, without falling forward, my blocks are right here to set my feet back onto, and then you can just play around, back and forth, just getting a little more courage each time, okay? If you've got really high blocks, next thing you do, remove one, okay, and so I've got my little padding here. If you don't have a blanket handy, maybe you double up on your mat, position yourself on your block. Not as high this time, so this time I actually lift my knees to the backs of my arms. Maybe one, maybe two toes come off. Got my block right there. Got my little padding. Okay. A couple things I would recommend if you're in a class and you are hot and sweaty. I recommend having pants on instead of shorts. You have sweaty knees on sweaty arms. It's very common that your knee is just going to slip right off your arms. So it's nice to have pants that cover your knees so they can grip on to the back of your arm. The other thing I'm going to highly recommend is the higher you get your knees up your arm, even toward your armpit, the easier this posture is going to be, okay? So as you move toward a crane. Okay, so as we start out, oftentimes we'll see, and this is okay, the knees way down here on the elbows, coming forward like this. and lifting the feet off the floor. That's great. It's a great place to start, great place to practice. As we get our knees higher up on the backs of our arms and we work toward crane pose, the full extension of the arms, we want to bring those knees really high up toward the armpits. We hinge forward. We start to lift the toes off the floor. We want to squeeze the toes and the heels tightly together, and then we start to extend the arms straight. So we work toward straight arms, keeping those hips high. It's really challenging. I just got a tiny little cramp in my core, emphasizing once again that we want a really nice engaged core in every yoga posture that we practice. I'm a little out of breath. All right, so we're gonna move on. Recommend practicing that crow with the blocks, without the blocks, and all those different positions. So next we're gonna move on to side crow. Oh, and let me just show you crow from the front, just so you can see it from a different position. Sometimes that helps to get a different angle. Okay, toes and heels draw together, hands come to the mat at shoulder distance apart, come into my little squat, lift the knees high up onto the backs of the arms. Gotta start to lean forward, look forward past the hands, engage the core, and then lift the feet. And then start to work the arms. Look at, I'm shaking. Okay. So hopefully that visual helps you a little bit. Of course, you're gonna hear lots of different ways to get into crow. There's lots of different ways. That's just the way that I like to teach it and that I feel is accessible for lots of students. So I hope it works for you. All right, side crow is the next. I'm actually gonna do this one from the front. So side crow is crow with a twist. Let's come back into that little ball. And we're gonna start by twisting the knees in either direction. I'm gonna twist mine to the right. I'm gonna twist my knees to the right. My toes and heels are side by side. And then you're gonna walk your hands back toward the front of your mat, or in my case, the side of the mat. Solid foundation, spread the fingers wide, press into the palms of the hands. Now, just like I did before, I'm gonna lift my knees as high as I can up the back of my arm, so toward my armpit. So lift, lift, lift. And then once again, it takes a little courage. You're gonna have to hinge forward, looking past your hands. And you just start to lift your feet off the floor. It's a posture I'm still working on, so I can't hold it very long, but you kind of get the idea. I'll show it to you from the side now. So in side crow, we have one knee resting on the arm and the other hip is lifted. It's not resting on anything, okay? So I'm gonna show you the other side of side crow from the side. So come into my little ball. I'm gonna walk my hands this time to the left. I'm gonna lift that knee high up into the back of my arm, hinge forward, and lift my feet off the floor. Hip is lifted. Whew, and that's side crow. I'd like to hold it for you longer, but I can't. It's just a really challenging pose. It's actually a pose that took me a long time to work toward. So I'm still working on it. And I'm gonna tell you about cloud now. And cloud is the posture that I practiced first before coming to side crow because it's a little more supportive. It's still a very, very deep twist. So you have to warm up with spinal twists, okay? I'm just showing you the posture, not the whole lead up to it. And in cloud, we get to rest one knee on the arm and the hip on the other arm. So again, it's a little more supportive. However, some people who feel like the twist is too deep for it actually have better luck in side crow. You'll just have to see for yourself, okay? So in cloud, we're gonna come into our little ball and we're gonna walk our hands. I'm just gonna do mine to the right. Position your hands at shoulder distance apart, spread your fingers wide. We're gonna lift that knee really high up on the back of the arm. And this time, I'm gonna take my right hip here and I'm gonna bring it to the back of my right arm. So I'm gonna lift, hinge forward, takes a little courage, and then I'm gonna place my right hip onto my right arm, and then I'm gonna lift my feet off the floor. So for me, with that extra support, I find that posture to be a little more accessible. So that was the posture I worked on a lot as I was working towards side crow. Some people find it more challenging, so test it out. If it's kind of a bridge for you on your way to side crow, I think it's a great pose. I don't know the name of it in Sanskrit. I've been taught that it's named cloud, so I hope that's correct. All right, so I'm just gonna show you on the other side. Actually, I'm gonna show you from the side view on the other side. Okay, so I'm gonna now walk my hands to the left, place them at shoulder distance apart, knee up the back of the arm, hip to the other elbow. And I'm gonna lift my feet off the floor for cloud. And unwind. So you can use your blocks as you practice side crow and cloud. Again, the same way I taught you for crow. Humid, I'm sweating. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial and you found some hints to be helpful. Once again, I recommend that you do warm up, do a little bit of a warm up before you practice these poses. But it's great just to have some of those variations, modifications, tips and techniques at the ready so you can work toward these poses. Thanks for practicing with me today. Namaste.